Hello, I am New Mexico student 100-793-488. But I like to go by André Gonzales. 100-793-488 is a number that was assigned to me by New Mexico's Public Education Department. Everything from health records to test scores to perceived career readiness is under 100-793-488. My entire educational existence is there. In today's society, it's extremely easy to think of students as numbers. Suddenly, the perceived quality of education is directly tied to how high a district's average test score is. A student's likeliness to get into college is determined by how well they do on these tests. All across the nation, you see student bodies engaged in cutthroat competitions to see who can get into that top 25, 20, and 10% of their class. So, in this age where education is being forced to run off of cut scores and curves, how do we ensure that New Mexico's schools are a place where students feel welcome and empowered? The answer? The answer is in local investment. It's in the students of our communities. It's in the people sitting to the left and to the right of you. The answer is in student advisory councils. So, student advisory councils, what are they? Essentially what they are official extensions of local school boards and state education departments that bring together students from all across their respective populations to have an upfront and frank discussion about what's actually happening in schools. This is a place where students can advocate for issues such as ensuring that LGBT students are treated with respect in the classroom, or expanding local work-study programs to support high schoolers, or, even talking about those things that we let pass for school lunch. The thing is that these councils have the potential to do so much good and create so much change if they're only given a chance. Whenever I talk about student advisory councils, I always get the same question. Well, why do we need this in our community? Well, since I don't have a couple of hours to sit here and talk with you guys, I'll give you my top 3 reasons. How does that sound? So, reason number 1, and this one's a little bit of an obvious one, but students have an absolutely unique perspective. Given the fact that by the time someone is a high school senior, they will have spent 2 out of 3 days in the classroom, shows that we know what works and what doesn't. We've seen the underbelly of education. We see the things that happen behind teachers' and administration's backs. We live through every single rule, regulation, and policy that is passed in the name of education reform. So why not ask us for input? Now that I've talked about student perspective, let's talk about how these councils can empower those students, which is the second reason. By establishing a student advisory council, you eliminate every single reason, every single excuse that a student has to feel apathetic or powerless in their own education. Instead of having an education system that says, we'll get back to you as soon as a student raises a concern, student advisory councils turn that we'll get back to you into a, how do you want to fix that? By establishing these councils, you enable students to create meaningful changes in their schools so that those schools can be a positive and productive place to drive the next generation towards greatness. So why not ask students to have a hand in their own education? The third reason, and this is arguably the biggest, is that student advisory councils help dismantle a barrier of anonymity that often exists between students and education officials. When I say barrier of anonymity, I mean when you have 2 groups, and one group is almost certain what the other is thinking or saying without even asking. A perfect example of this is a recent conversation that I had with someone who actually helps craft education policy. What this person told me is that there's a lot of guesswork that goes into determining whether students, number 1, will be receptive to the proposed policy, and number 2, whether that policy actually deserves to be in the classroom in the first place. On the flip side, you have students who are saying, well, those education officials don't care about us. That isn't always the case, and I know that. The thing is that we cannot have an us versus them mentality when talking about education. If we want to create meaningful change, positive change, then we have to work hand in hand, side by side, not one against the other. So why not ask us students what we think? By now, I think you guys have kind of caught on to the question that I keep asking. So why not ask? The truth is that this is the exact question that I asked my local school board when we were trying to get our own student advisory council in Las Cruces. At the time, there was a coalition of about 150 youth from all across Doña Ana County who were just calling to have some type of input into their education. Now, there were definitely bumps along the way, of course, but on August 5th, 2015, the Las Cruces Public Schools Board of Education made it crystal clear that they stand by their motto, where kids come first, and established their very own Student Advisory Council. And now here I am standing before you all, and I'm proud to say that that LCPS Student Advisory Council is doing amazing. Every single setback or obstacle or minor inconvenience or insult that I went through to get to this point is absolutely worth it when I get to see the dialogue, the meaningful dialogue that happens between these students and local leaders. I've spent a better part of my life in public education, and this is the first time where I feel as if my peers and I actually have a voice. And that feeling is amazing. Because in the end, the state of New Mexico should not know us students as another set of numbers, but as living, thriving, growing young minds. They should know us as the students who struggled while our education was reformed. Students who, although the deck seemed stacked against us at times, tried time and time again to achieve excellence. Students who are just trying to make our teachers proud. I want the state of New Mexico to know me as André Miguel Gonzales, not as New Mexico student 100-793-488.